Now, let's invoice timesheets and materials associated to a contract. In this video, we're gonna see how to record timesheets for a contract, how to invoice those timesheets, and how to use specific user cost per contract. This video is tightly linked to the human resources application, especially the timesheet application. If you want to learn more about those applications, have a look at the human resource chapter. In this present case, we are creating a new kind of contract for a new client named Talent HR. For companies that prefer to buy consultancy hours, my company, iTools, directly invoices the timesheet of consultants. To do so, you have to apply timesheets in the contract. That way, users will be able to record timesheets for this contract in the human resources application. Then, in the invoicing tab, let's apply the invoicing based on timesheet. I can add an expectation, for instance, $5,000. To invoice the timesheets, here I can select a specific price list, depending on the type of customer, for instance, and I can select a specific timesheet invoicing ratio. By default it's 100%, but you have the choice among different values. You can also create your own values. That sounds good. Now I can save my contract and I can start encoding the first timesheets for this timesheet contract. I go to the human resources application. In my timesheet activities, I can record my first timesheet. Let's say the requirements analysis part 1. In the analytic account, I can select my contract. By selecting this contract, I retrieve the default invoicing ratio defined in the contract, and I can set the spend time. Then I can save. If I go back to my contract, I can notice that here odoo suggests me to invoice $300 of timesheets. To find out this amount, odoo looks at the employee's configuration. Here I open the employee associated to my user, with which I have recorded the timesheets. In the HR settings tab, here I retrieve a service product for the timesheets. This product is composed of a public price and of cost. The cost will be used to compute the expenses for my project, and the sale price will be used by the system to invoice the timesheet. Now I can go back to the sales menu in order to invoice those timesheets. For instance, this is something I can do at the end of each month. I select all the timesheets I have to invoice, and from the More menu here I can click Create Invoice. Here I select the data to add in my invoice, for instance the time spent. Here I would like to keep the cost secret. I can also force a product to display in the invoice, and then I can click Create Invoices. Here is what I get in terms of invoices, and as soon as I validate this invoice, this revenue is taken into account in my contract. I decided to launch the invoice from this dedicated menu in order to launch a batch invoicing for several clients. You can, of course, invoice directly from this invoicing tab, exactly like the sales orders. You can also create new timesheets from this tab. Odoo gives you a nice tool to easily compare the costs and the revenues associated to a contract. Just click on the Cost Revenue Smart button. In this view, Odoo gathers all the analytic items associated to this contract, both the sales and the expenses. In the sales section, I retrieve my sales invoices, the sales amount, and in the timesheet journal, here, I retrieve all the expenses for my company. Those expenses I computed based on the cost of the timesheet. That way, you can have a look at a glance at the profit done on each project. In Odoo, you have also the ability to change the user cost per contract. To do so, go to Settings, Sales. In the Contract section, you can check one employee can have different roles per contract. Then apply. Thanks to this, you will be able to set specific cost per user within each project. I open my contract. And I get now a new tab where I can set specific prices for my users. Let's select my current user. The default price here is $75, but I can replace it by $100 if I want. I can also select a specific service dedicated to the senior consultant, junior consultant, etc. And each item having its own costs and prices. Then I can save. If I recall new timesheets for this project, part 2, let's say 4 hours as well, I save it. Now let's invoice this amount from the contract directly. This is something that can be done once a month. Here, as you can see, the amount to invoice is no more $300 but $400. And you can invoice by clicking here. Quite simple. Now, as a last tip, here, you have to know that you can combine both types of invoicing, the fixed price and the timesheet. If you sell some consultancy hours in advance, you can set in the field prepared service unit the hours sold in your sales order. For instance, 8. As you can see here, this is the amount of remaining hours to spend on this project. As soon as you get a negative amount, this contract will be set as to be renewed as well. So the renewal can be managed both from dates and for the timesheet sold to the client.